You're listening to Co-op Radio 102.7 FM, CFRO. My name is Reg Argue. I have in the studio today my co-host Tanya Hill. And our first guest is going to be David Orchard. He's an author, a political activist. Are you there, David?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to begin right off the bat with your article, the one that was called Afghanistan and Iraq, It's the Same War.
Right.
If you could quickly give the gist of the article to the listening audience.
Well, I've written a number of articles on the war, and I wrote the first piece way back in 2002, 2001, when we were contemplating going in there, and I've written several since. And the gist of this most recent piece is this is an undeclared war that we're involved in Afghanistan. Under international law, countries can't use lethal force against other countries unless they are under direct and ongoing attack themselves, or unless it's a case of self-defense. And this is very narrowly prescribed in international law, and neither of those criteria fits Canada. We are not under attack by Afghanistan, and we're not fighting against Afghanistan in self-defense. So that really puts this war into the category of an illegal war, and after the Nuremberg Tribunal, those judges ruled there that an illegal war or launching an attack against another country was a supreme international crime, a crime against the peace. So that's some of the background there. We were told, well, this is a UN operation that will be going in as part of a UN force. Canadians aren't in Afghanistan and never have been wearing blue helmets. We went in under U.S. command as part of the U.S. So-called War on Terror, the Operation Enduring Freedom. That's how we went into Afghanistan, and even today, now that we're operating under ISAF and the NATO command, we're still operating under U.S. command because the Supreme General, the Supreme Commander of NATO, is always an American commander. So this is the kind of big lie, if I can put it that way. This is essentially an American war that we're involved in, and we're not really being told that fact. And then we're told, well, we're there to help the Afghan people, to help democracy, to help women and girls go to school, all very laudable goals. But this idea of imposing democracy on a foreign country with bombs and tanks simply has no historical precedent. So I don't think that this is something that's going to succeed. And then there's the whole issue of the weaponry that's being used in Afghanistan. I mentioned in my piece that the Americans are using depleted uranium weaponry. These are shells, bullets, missiles coated with depleted uranium, and when that bursts into flame, when it hits a tank or vaporizes, the smallest particle lodging in the lungs essentially is a death sentence from cancer for the person breathing it. And the death rate in Iraq and in Afghanistan has been horrific. We haven't heard the total figures at all. In fact, the Canadian government has a policy of not publishing the civilian casualties that are happening in Afghanistan. We know now that 1 million Iraqis have been killed in the Iraq war, and 2 million externally displaced, forced out of the country, and another 2 million internally displaced. Those are the horrific numbers in Iraq, but the numbers in Afghanistan, we don't know them, even though we're part of creating some of those problems. So for all those reasons, I point out in my piece, we should not be there. Canada should be using its military to protect our own borders, to defend our own sovereignty. We should not be using them to impose or invade other countries around the world that haven't attacked us.
I was watching a 60 Minutes piece on Sunday, and it was a rerun, but it showed that right after the Vietnam War in 1975, from May until December, the United States brought in over 131,000 Vietnamese. The question I have is that is the Liberals willing to step up in Parliament and say, look, we got to bring in a minimum of at least 100,000 Iraqis and Afghanistan so that way they're not suffering in other lands?
Well, that's another interesting point that you raise, and that's something that we call for. The article that you mentioned, the most recent article that I wrote, I co-authored it with Michael Mandel, who's a professor of international law at Osgoode Hall, and we make that point there that Canada should be opening its doors to the refugees trying to flee from the rain of bombs in Afghanistan and Iraq, and so far, as you point out, that has not happened. Those poor people that are fleeing across the borders, trying to run away from this war, have really no place to go. And Jordan, for example, has accepted some over 1.5 million Iraqis, a huge number, as I understand it, and totally overstretched their infrastructure. Canada has to do much more in terms of allowing these people who are fleeing the war that we're part of to come here. Now, you ask about whether the Liberals will call for that. The Liberals, under Stéphane Dion, have demanded that Canada get out of the Afghanistan war and do so by February 2009. I would like to see us get out sooner than that. But in the meantime, this call has to be made, and I'm urging people to make their views known to both the Liberals and the Conservatives that Canada should be opening its doors to these people that are trying to flee the hail of bullets and the rain of bombs and depleted uranium.
On July 1st, when my wife Tanya and I had a chance to meet you at the barbecue here in Vancouver area, I asked you a question. It was referenced the conscientious war objectives from the United States. Now, being a veteran of the Canadian Armed Forces and a former Blue Beret who did a United Nations tour of Iran in 1988, I'm going to present the question again. Is Canada willing to open their doors to the conscientious war objectives from the United States and other nations and offer these people not only safe haven, but offer them citizenship as soon as they get here?
Well, that's another good question, because as you know, during the Vietnam War, Canada accepted many young Americans who were refusing to participate in that other Holocaust, if I can put it that way, against Vietnam, that war that went on for 10 years and cost 6 million Southeast Asian lives under the American bombs. At that time, under Mr. Trudeau, Canada accepted the conscientious objectors from the United States. At that time, the United States had a draft, and so Canada accepted those who were fleeing from service in Vietnam. Now, the situation is that there is no draft in the United States, and so it's a little different situation, but those people who are attempting, those soldiers who are attempting to leave behind the Iraq War and are refusing to participate in what they feel is an illegal war, some of them have come to Canada, and then they've been shoved right back across the border to the United States, and I've opposed this completely. We were told after the Second World War, and my mother served overseas for 4 years in that conflict, we were told in the Nuremberg trials after that just accepting orders was not good enough, that soldiers had a duty to refuse to participate in what they feel is an illegal war, and that's what these young Americans are coming to Canada. They're saying this is an illegal war and they don't want to be part of it, and Canada, to its shame, has been sending them back. There's a young fellow who's living in Saskatchewan who's written a book called The Deserter's Tale about the war in Iraq and about why he's refused to come back. And so far he has been allowed to stay in Canada, but there has to be a pressure on our government to say these people need to be able to have an asylum, and they need to be able to come here for refusing to participate in what is an illegal war that their country is involved in.